breaking news from Los Angeles, California, where Hollywood has just announced that they will be remaking the recent remake of Ghostbusters. Instead of an all-female cast, this time the film will feature a CGI Bill Murray, 2 cardboard cutouts, and a rock. And not the actor Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but an actual rock. Studio executives found.
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
It's no secret that we moviegoers now live in a commercial filmmaking world that's essentially built on 2 things. One is live-action comic book adaptations, the other remakes and reboots of already established properties. Year after year, Hollywood keeps cranking out renewed versions of stuff we've seen before, sometimes with great results, other times with not so great results. But regardless, the fact remains that these renewed versions aren't going to go away anytime soon. AKA, we all get to keep existing within a culture where a movie industry practices more recycling than any actual environmental company. The Mummy? Here you go. Psycho? No problem. Ghostbusters? You bet your ass we got Ghostbusters, boy. All things considered, it seems that there are only a tiny group of rare movies and movie franchises that even Hollywood hesitates to touch. And because this is the internet, a lot of people have given their own views on what those rare movies might be. But mostly, at least as far as I've seen, these views seem to be very subjective based. Instead of giving clear reasons why, people just list out their own personal favorites. Oh, Jaws. They can't possibly remake Jaws. Jaws is such a great movie. Oh, Citizen Kane. There's no way they can reboot Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is the Citizen Kane of filmmaking. To make it clear, there's nothing wrong with subjectivity. Subjectivity is great. But on this channel, I like to take a more objective point of view on things, which is why I'm making this video here today. To bring up a few different examples of movies that I believe are pretty much impossible to successfully recycle, and to examine the aspects behind why that is. And this way, hopefully, to once and for all answer the question, what actually makes a movie unremakeable and a movie franchise unrebootable? Also, to make another thing clear, I'm not saying these films will never get remade. It is Hollywood after all. And more importantly, I'm also not saying these are the only films that can't be successfully remade. That's not the point. The point isn't to list out the movies, it's to determine the key anti-remake factors and qualities within those movies. Okay? Okay. Uh-oh. All this talk about objectivity and the very first franchise I bring up is a personal favorite of mine. Maybe I should have saved this for last. In all seriousness though, not only do I believe Pirates of the Caribbean is impossible to successfully reboot, I also believe it's pretty much the only modern blockbuster franchise that statement applies to. And the reason for this is one single name: Captain Jack Sparrow. Good old Captain Jack is a character that really needs no introduction. Honestly, the very first time we meet him in The Curse of the Black Pearl is already more than enough to make it clear just who he is. And today, Jack Sparrow can be considered one of the greatest summer blockbuster characters ever. Or better, one of the greatest characters ever. And he also single-handedly serves as the reason why the Pirates franchise can never be successfully rebooted. This reason essentially divides into 2 halves. First half of the reason is the man behind the makeup, Johnny Depp. And while Johnny Depp maybe isn't the most liked or consistent person nowadays in his performances or in his private life, there still is no denying the greatness he managed to achieve with Captain Jack. I mean, hell, he was nominated for a freaking Oscar for a role in a major summer blockbuster, which, if you know anything about the Oscars, shouldn't happen. And this brings up the issue you might have already seen coming. Captain Jack Sparrow cannot be recast. No matter the arguments you make, no matter the replacement actor you name, it just will not work. Jack Sparrow is one of a kind, and there can never be another version of him. If you need proof, look no further than my video about Dead Men Tell No Tales. When Johnny Depp is done with Pirates, so is Captain Jack. Which leads us to the second half of the reason, the fact that without Captain Jack, there is no Pirates. The franchise is called Pirates of the Caribbean, but realistically, it might as well be called Captain Jack and also some other people too. And that's not to say there are no other interesting characters in this franchise. There are. A movie about Barbossa, a movie about Davy Jones, that'd be great. The problem is, it wouldn't be great enough. If a movie carries the name Pirates of the Caribbean and is missing Jack Sparrow, that's an obstacle practically impossible to overcome. No matter how great the new lead character is, they could never fill the void left behind by Jack, and thus the movie would never truly work. Just like no other actor can ever replace Johnny Depp, no other character can ever replace Captain Jack. So, in a nutshell, unrecastable role plus unreplaceable character equals what? That's right, an unremakeable movie. First off, I'm not saying Back to the Future is a perfect movie. I'm not saying it's the best movie, because doing so would be subjective, and right now subjectivity is irrelevant. That out of the way, I will say that Back to the Future is a perfect movie in the sense of what it sets out to do. As in, the story of this film is very elaborately specific. And that elaborately specific story really is the only way a Back to the Future movie can go. What I'm trying to say is this: Back to the Future cannot be successfully remade because there is only one specific way to tell the story of this movie. No matter how great or how impressively innovative your remake of it is, it doesn't matter, because once again, the story already is perfect the way it is. Let's say that Hollywood does want to remake Back to the Future. Let's say that they hire the most talented writer working today to come in and figure out the story. Christopher McQuarrie, Michael Arndt, Christopher Nolan, take your pick. Whoever the writer ends up being, I guarantee you one of two things would happen. 1. The writer puts together a plot that ultimately ends up following the same exact beats of the original story, aka it would have absolutely nothing to add. Or 2, the writer revamps the plot altogether, in which case, let's face it, it wouldn't be Back to the Future and it wouldn't be as good. Why wouldn't it be as good? Because realistically, this movie already is as good as a Back to the Future movie can be. Okay, maybe I am being a bit subjective, just bear with me. Back to the Future isn't just a time-traveling movie. It's a very elaborate combination of puzzle pieces put together in a very specific way. You can either put those pieces together like they were meant to and get the same exact picture we've already seen, or you can just take the premise of the movie and put the pieces together in a new way and as a result get a picture that's totally different. Take The Matrix for example. It's a great movie, it's a good franchise, but I wouldn't call it unrebootable. This because there are many different ways you can go with The Matrix. The premise of The Matrix allows for multiple different approaches that would all be functional and interesting. But with Back to the Future, there is only one approach. You either do Back to the Future or you do some other time-traveling movie, but you can't do both. When a movie is great when it's built in a very elaborately specific way and would fall apart if even one piece of it was changed, there is no way to properly and freshly redo it, aka you cannot successfully remake it, especially if it already is timeless. What other movies are like that? You tell me. Then of course there are the movies which more than anything else originate from the vision of a single filmmaker. The prime example of this being Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Now, to be perfectly honest, I've seen this film once and it wasn't for me. Maybe I shouldn't say that because apparently you have to be a highly intelligent filmgoer to fully appreciate it. And that's fine, I guess. But to me, it was pretty boring. I mean, just look at the opening. It's 3 straight minutes of black screen. And when you finally do see something, then it's just a bunch of monkeys jumping up and down for 12 minutes. And yeah, you can bring up the music and you can bring up the themes, but at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of monkeys jumping up and down for 12 minutes. And the movie itself is longer than freaking Transformers. But personal opinions aside, the fact remains that 2001 A Space Odyssey is the product of Stanley Kubrick's unique vision, and therefore it cannot be properly remade, because the only filmmaker who could ever remake it is Stanley Kubrick, and somehow I doubt that's gonna happen. Maybe Hollywood could redo a part of it, specifically the HAL 9000 part. In the right hands, that could actually be an interesting film. But all the other parts, the monkeys, the space baby, the LSD view, I have a feeling that's a Kubrick exclusive. So, all the movies that more than anything are the vision of a single person, your Space Odysseys, your Pulp Fictions, you can't properly remake those. And if you choose to try, good luck. And once more, yeah, I understand, it's theme, it's intelligent, but still, it's just monkeys. Look at it, it's just monkeys.
You were aware that you were in the presence of genius.
As I mentioned before, we all currently live in a time where the movie industry is dominated by recycled content. And I understand this recycle mentality is easy to hate and get frustrated over. Every one remade movie equals 1 or 2 or even 3 less original movies, and that's a bummer. But at the same time, I do feel it's not all that bad. Sometimes recycling content can result in good stuff too. Without remakes, we wouldn't have The Departed, we wouldn't have Rhett. And for many younger audiences, the remakes are the originals. Some could call 2016's The Magnificent Seven a shameless remake cash grab without ever knowing that the quote-unquote original 1960s Magnificent Seven was a remake as well. The fact is that it's always easy to complain. We like to demand more great original movies, but when Hollywood actually makes them, then we don't show up. I do hope we would start getting into a culture of more original stuff, but I also understand the studio point of view. But hopefully what Netflix is doing will force the studios to follow suit and produce more of that sweet original content. That being said, we audiences like to loudly announce that some specific films shouldn't ever be touched, that this movie is unremakeable, that this franchise is unrebootable. But to be honest, they usually aren't. Some are, yes, but most of them aren't. I tried to look for more reasons why some films shouldn't be remade, but honestly, these 3 examples are pretty much the only proper ones. I'm not saying they're the only movies that shouldn't be remade, I'm just saying that the anti-remake qualities they possess are the only ones I could find. But then again, maybe I'm wrong about everything. Maybe a full 2-hour movie about monkeys jumping up and down would be the best remake in history. Maybe. So, what do I know? Alright fellas and fellarettes, what do you think about the stuff discussed here today, and what would you say makes a movie unremakeable? What films should Hollywood never touch and why? Let me know. Thanks for watching.